So you're an attorney. You are an
Yeah,
attorney. Yeah,
that's right.
that's interesting. And I got to say this, and I'm glad we're doing this virtual, so you can't reach across the table and slap me. Um,
And
I joke because I have a lot of attorneys around me with different business ventures, and so I'm very attuned to working with attorneys,
yep. Oh
in
yeah.
terms of agreements and everything. But I and
Sure.
I joke with all of them, and hopefully you could find this in good humor because I'll joke with you a little bit about it. But
Oh,
I always say
absolutely. Yeah.
there's way too many attorneys in this world.
Oh,
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Finance, where we explore the daily lives of Cctg graduates, lenders, and entrepreneurs alike. And I want to welcome a very special person that I didn't get to meet personally, but did come through training only a few months back virtually. So I'm excited to see him personally and talk to him personally. David Roth of Painted Horse Financial. Hey, David.
sure. Good morning, Kris. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. It's great.
Good.
Finally, this is kind of unique because you had come through a few months back in our virtual class. So this is really
That's
the
right.
first kind of face-to-face conversation that we're having. So it's cool.
Exactly. It is. No, it's great. I mean, everyone, 2020 is getting used to being uncomfortable, I think, kind of the theme for the year, right? So obviously would have loved to have been able to been there in person, get to meet the whole group, but it's worked out just terrifically. So can't
Awesome.
complain.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The first question that I have
Yeah.
is Painted Horse Financial. That is
Yeah.
that is a very unique name, and I didn't know your name until I
Mhm.
read some of the notes before this podcast, and I'm like,
Right.
that's interesting. So I want to dive into that. What gave you the
Yeah.
inspiration for the name?
A couple of things, but really right out of the gate, when you think of painted horse and then financial, you're thinking, how does that even add up, right? The idea of generally everything when I was trying to figure a name was like pinnacle or peak or, maybe a description of the area, like New York, or I'm from Colorado. So it was,
Yeah.
kind of the region, whatnot too. And nothing wrong with any of that, but it was just stuff that I kept kind of finding the same thing over and over again. I thought, what would be a unique way in a field that, it's not necessarily known to be kind of sexy or out there as far as names are concerned,
Yep.
banking and finance. And it's been a great conversation starter. So stumbled on Painted Horse. And really it kind of boils down. So as I mentioned, I'm from Denver, Colorado's southwest area. It's just absolutely a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. If you spend some time out here, I know you know that, and all the other listeners out there too that have had a chance to be out here. And so the idea was kind of twofold. Number one, and I know we'll have the logo there too, so you can kind of see what it looks like. But having that sort of painted horse, the idea itself, and it's in motion, right? So there, as I said, it was twofold. Those old Spanish horses that were brought over in the 1500s, some of the most beautiful, majestic creatures, and it's kind of the wildness, the freedom, the ability to charge forward and go after your dreams. And so it was a combination of that and a little bit of a personal side too. So way back when my family first immigrated over from Germany, kind of the claim to fame was that my great grandfather, who I'm actually named after, David, he had some horses from what was the old Mecklenburg Stagecoach Horse Association. And this was before Germany was Germany. And he brought this horse over. And one of them was called Young Reinhold. And this horse was an absolute stud. And this was a farm in Iowa. And this horse ended up siring 2 of Teddy Roosevelt's stagecoach horses.
Wow.
And so that was the way these horses were able to feed the family, for for years and years. So it was kind of the idea of, number one, it's unique. It's just a little different.
Sure.
2, I like, that sort of the sense of, hey, you're going forward, you're chasing after your dreams, and there's nothing holding you back. And then, hey, the fun part, that number 3 being, horses have been in our family for a long time, and just had a kind of a good time doing it. And the logo, we had just a blast putting it together. So
that's probably
long and short.
That's the coolest part. Has kind of some like a family lineage going back.
Right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
Listen, other famous entrepreneurs used a horse, Enzo Ferrari, right? I mean, come on. That's probably one of the most famous horses out there.
Absolutely. I mean, the Mustang, right?
The Mustang, right? And
Right. Hmm.
I've been to Denver a couple times,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that famous horse sculpture going into
Oh
the
my gosh.
I know
Yes.
about that. I know about that.
We call it the El Caballo Diablo,
Yeah.
the
I don't
devil
know.
horse.
I
Every
don't know.
time,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know the story with that
right?
though, but the person who
Yeah,
built that, it actually
yeah,
killed him. It actually
it
fell on him.
did.
Yeah,
It
that's the
felt,
crazy
it killed.
part about the
Isn't
horse.
that insane? Right. And I
It is.
think it was his son that ended up finishing it for him. But
Right.
no, I know it's so funny. I was going to ask if you spent much time in Denver because when we have family friends come in,
Yeah.
they're like, "Why?" And it has red beady eyes, and it's right
Yeah.
around the turn as you're coming in.
Yeah.
People think this is
Weird.
the craziest thing. And they ask you for Denver Broncos fans, so everyone goes, "Oh, is it a Bronco?" I was like, "No, there's really
Really is.
no connection to that." So,
Awesome. Awesome.
so
Well,
yeah,
um, that gives me a little perspective on kind of where you're coming from. So let's talk
mhm,
about it. You made a decision to come to CCTG a few months back,
right,
particularly during the pandemic. Talk to me about life before CCTG. What were you doing, and what
sure,
ultimately led you? Well, how did you even find us? And
yeah.
what happened after that? So just give me life before CCTG.
Absolutely, Chris. So it was a little fortuitous. I was working as an attorney in business law, so I have a legal background. Graduated from the University of Denver at a JD MBA, and
Okay.
so my thought was, hey, how can I help? And we could dive into that maybe sometime later. My initial thought was going to the Air Force as a JAG officer, but
Mhm.
got more involved, worked with some judges, and then fell into the business law side because of having the MBA background. And
Sure.
so, really, towards the end of last year, was working on my own, had helped with some other companies and firms that I would do some legal research on, but a lot of work myself with some small business owners. And the fun part with that was as much consulting in the legal end can be, as you start to grow in the law, you really have to get tailored into a specific niche, which is
Right.
fine. And that's great. There's not very many jack of all trades, especially in a large metropolitan area,
Yeah.
attorneys. So I noticed myself starting to kind of go into an area. I thought, okay, I could be good at this, but do I really enjoy this opportunity? And I thought, through a lot of self-reflection and analysis, I figured, no, this isn't kind of what I want to do. I thought, maybe there'd be a way I could work for myself, or like, again, I was running my own firm, but thinking more on a business side, learning the financials and the day-to-day, because I was helping companies do that all the time.
Right.
And so I actually went on to franchise.com. And I'm looking on, I'm thinking maybe there's a franchise. I like to stay fit and athletic. And I'm looking into some spas or fitness centers or some gyms, what that might entail. And I stumbled on this thing called CCTG. And I started looking at it. Of course, I'm an attorney, so I do my due diligence. I'm researching all the background,
Yeah.
looking up in New York, seeing your profile, going,
Yeah. Yeah.
man, this looks like a pretty cool opportunity. And started to get pretty serious. So I've got some good friends in banking here in Colorado, and started just to ask them about their involvement in finance and what they do.
Right.
And kind of one thing led to another. And as I was talking with people, just kind of looking at exactly what the training group provides, I thought, my God, I always think, hey, what's my downside? As I'm looking through this, what are the options? And it was just a no-brainer. And so it was from that
That point
online
on.
website. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just kind of trickled into it. And then as I kept researching, I
But that's
couldn't call you guys fast enough.
Yeah, and that's how people they stumble across us. It's rare that they look for exactly
Yeah.
what we are, but they stumble across us. So, wow, I didn't really realize that. So you're an attorney. You are an
Yeah,
attorney. Yeah,
that's right.
that's interesting. And I got to say this, and I'm glad we're doing this virtual, so you can't reach across the table and slap me. Um,
And
I joke because I have a lot of attorneys around me with different business ventures, and so I'm very attuned to working with attorneys,
yep.
uh,
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of agreements and everything. But I and I
Sure.
I joke with all of them, and hopefully you could find this in good humor because I'll joke with you a little bit about it. But
Oh,
I always say
absolutely. Yeah.
there's way too many attorneys in this world.
Oh,
There's way too
yes.
many, and to the point where, you know, New York State, we're in Albany, the capital of Albany. They have the
Right.
bar exam, and they have it.
Yeah. Oh,
They have it. We have a huge stadium right next to our office here. Not a stadium, a arena center. And every
yeah.
year, all the law students take the bar exam, and they all flock
Sure.
from all over New York. And right downtown where our office building is flooded with all these, I call them kids, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's so funny because what I'll do, and everybody here, they're like, you shouldn't do this, but I like to have some fun. there's a couple delis around here, and they all flood the delis. And I go in, and I have a business card. I give him the business card, and I
Yeah.
walk in, and I hand him out. I go, "Hey guys," I go, "Listen," I go, "You do know this market's saturated. If you ever need a job, give me a call." And I pass out, I pass out my business
I love it.
to all the law students.
Exactly.
But
That's, I
yeah, I
promise
mean,
you.
law isn't what it used to be 30, 40 years ago. Meaning,
No.
my main
Yeah.
attorney explained it to me like, you join a firm,
Mhm.
and you're at the bottom of the barrel. You're working 100 hours a week for really hardly anything. Here you are, you
Right.
spend all
Yeah.
this money to go to law school, right? And you come out,
Yep.
and you're probably broke, you're in debt, and like you get your first job, but you're working like a dog. You really don't start
Yeah.
making money until maybe 10, 15 years, maybe become partner, or, I mean, correct me if I'm
True.
wrong.
No, you're spot on.
Yeah.
And going back to your initial comment, I mean, if you can't laugh about this, right, you're in the wrong. Because I knew that going in, and I think, and help me if I'm wrong. You have a father who's a Korean War veteran as well, correct?
I do. Yes. Yes. I do.
Okay, that's all. Yeah, same with me. And so maybe I could share a little commonality here on that end because being raised, he was a kind of a drill sergeant type guy. He was in the army, but he was business all the way, oil and gas man, very successful. And when I told him, "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking of going into the law," the first thing he said was what you just said, "David, we got too many attorneys in this world. We don't need another one." And I said, "Well, what if I go into the JAG? I'll serve the country, go in this direction." He said, "Okay, well, maybe." And I tried to,
Yeah.
soften it with adding a little bit of business side. So I
Right.
couldn't agree. And to your point, Kris, that was what I mentioned about this niche is to really be successful. And hey, there are people that, obviously can do a variety of different things. But
Sure.
if you get into, let's say, family law or trust and estates, or even if you want to be in court all day,
Yeah.
you really have to focus. And you said it, you start at the very bottom, but like anything, you work your
Yeah.
way up.
You do.
But if you're someone that's entrepreneurial, you love being with people, you're, a little bit more of I don't want to say go-getter, but it's not something that I think you maybe can thrive as well in other areas. So
Right.
that's what the
Oh.
opportunity here is allowed.
I
Yeah.
know, and it's funny. I say that, and we've had former or current attorneys come through training here in the last
Sure.
12 years, and I say the same thing. I kind of bust their chops, and
Yeah.
now think about this. I mean, you don't have to say, but you went to law school, you got your MBA, you spent all this
Yeah.
money, and now you just say, I don't want to do this anymore, and you
Right.
find
Right.
us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
how life works, though.
It's so funny how stuff like that kind of falls in play. And I'm sure you've got things in your life too, where you kind of have gone through, pursue one avenue, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, but again, I look back and think it was the experience as a business law attorney. And again, I say like as if I'm not, I still am, I'm still active in the bar, but my focus here is obviously now on the financial end. But had I never gone to school or been able to pursue what I did legally, and I've been an attorney since 2013, so have had 7 years now built up,
Yeah.
but really working with small businesses to learn the skill set that I'm now able to apply here
And
in
I
this position.
I gotta tell you something, that's unique. That's very unique because in my experience, and you took class, so you remember that. I think you know where I'm gonna go with this. Where
Sure. Yeah.
where I say that what we learn in the whole 7 or 6 days here in class, everybody, if you want financing advice, where does everybody go? They go to their attorney, their CPA, and yet I say those are the
Yeah.
people who know the least about what we
Yes.
teach here, right?
Right.
And so
Right. Right.
those are the people that are going to make, as a loan broker, your life hard because they're going to give bad advice to the client of which you have to overcome. But the fact that now you have that, you came into class having a little business acumen, which just because you're an attorney doesn't mean you're a good business owner or
Oh,
that
yeah.
you know finance, right? But now
Yep.
that you have both, man, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, no, and thank you. And that's been, I'm very grateful. Again, that's the way I look at it. It's because every day, and we kind of talk about this, and the joy of your training was those 6 days when you're just immersed with things. You're learning so many different aspects, and that's where I sat back and went, my God, even 3 years of law school. I guess I combined, so was able to get some stuff done in about 2.5 years. But you're in that classroom setting. It's just like soaking up as much as you can. I gave everyone the analogy of just be a sponge. Sit
Right.
down, absorb it all. You're going to learn when you walk out and move forward. But I mean, you said it. It's not like something, even, and I can speak to this as having gone through law school. There's nothing we learned in your class that we even touched in law, or even partly in the MBA, which is a huge credit to what you offer.
I
Because
appreciate
there were
that.
things I'm thinking, well, it opened my eyes to go, my gosh, I need to pursue this more myself and go forward and understand, especially when I'm working with clients, how I'm going to be able to be best positioned to help them through this process itself. So that was something just totally invaluable that you guys were able to offer.
Great. That's no, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
That's a, and you have definitely the credibility to say that. So now take me through, all right. So you did your due diligence. Obviously you're an attorney.
Right.
You committed. What package did you choose?
So I was a legacy.
The legacy package. Okay. All
That's
right.
Full on. Yeah. Top tier.
No looking back. Here it is.
That's it. The here's all my cards on the table package, Kris. Exactly.
What was your, and it's interesting from your perspective because you didn't have a chance to be here. I mean, people are always nervous when they come here in person, but now, what was your feeling that morning before the webinar started? Where you were like, holy shit, I just paid $100,000 to be on a webinar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's, when you say it that way, you're right. My palms get sweaty thinking about it, but no, it was actually, so honestly, the decision, I'll start with the first part of that question. Really what made me decide that was everything associated with that positioning. So the marketing aspect, the lead generation, the loan processing. And I'm the type of guy that as you mentioned, did my due diligence, was able to speak to everybody that I had any questions or concerns with, totally alleviated. Yeah. And I dive straight in. And as you can tell, I mean, I'm all 100% in or I'm not able to do it, So for me, it really was a no-brainer. I know people hear that number, they're like, wow, that's a ton of money. And it is. But I always look at, what are you getting out?
And people that don't know, it's a ton of money to be on a webinar. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, kind of like this, right? But and you're sitting in straight 6 days, and I added that marketing package. So I had the benefit of exactly. Yeah. And so for me, the best part too, it's looking at the talent, the people. I mean, your background is phenomenal, and everybody that's watching this knows, or who hasn't, could go and look and see everything you've done, which is just amazing. And so for me, it's, I think I joked with you after the training was over. I said, it's a lot like learning politics for the first time, going to like poli-sci class 101 and being taught by the Secretary of State. I mean, to me, that's how I felt. I was like, this is so legit. Well, of course, I mean, I appreciate it. Everything you said came with such weight to me, that experience, and not only you, but your whole team. And then the aspect of having the access to these lenders. And again, I'm running my own business, so I'm in charge of what I'm doing. And it was that sort of freedom and the energy that I love working with small business and business of all sizes. So that was what I really wasn't nervous. I'll tell you a really quick funny story. The only time I actually thought, oh my gosh, maybe give a little bit of pause was when I first was going through. I decided I'm going to move forward, going to sign the contract, we're going to move some funds. So I'm talking to the account executive that I've got at my financial institution to do this. And I have all the information, right? The routing number, the bank, everything. And she stops me. She goes, Mr. Roth, obviously I'm not going to question, what you decide to do with your money. These are your funds, but we just want to make sure, do you know for sure this bank and the routing number are, the correct, everything is going through? And for a second I went, oh my God, yeah, you're right. Here we go. I guess we're going to find out. But I'm like, nope, I'm all in. I said, yes, ma'am, this has been verified. We're ready to go. But it was that one split second I thought, man, we're really doing this. So no, to answer it, when we got to the morning of, I was excited. And of course, we're out in Denver, so it's early morning, head of New York, and I've got my coffee and ready to rock and roll. So
ready to rock and roll. So, and so now this webinar starts and you're starting to go through. I mean, what'd you think after the first day? I mean, the first day is usually overwhelming because it's new and everybody's like trying to figure out, okay, they're checking off the boxes. There's an office. There's some guy speaking in front of a camera. We didn't get scammed yet. I mean, but at the end of the day, what did you think of that first day, Monday?
The first day to me, God, as I'm really trying to think back, I was just so impressed. I mean, I think it was, you addressed the concerns a majority of us I know we're going to have up front, just as you mentioned, like, hey guys, aren't you glad we're here? This is it. We're real. This is not just, it wasn't a blank screen that showed up with like, you've been had,
we're not in a basement. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I didn't see your mom walk by with macaroni and cheese, she wasn't asking what you want for dinner, It was a real legit thing. And so for me, it was, I went back over my notes. I saw the list of the folks that were attending, like people that had introduced themselves, all very professional. And it was so well run. My next thought was, I can't wait to start day 2, because it was, let's drink from a fire hose. But the benefit I had coming into this, oh, go ahead, Kris, let me interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the benefit that I had coming from a legal background, I was used to having to absorb a lot of information at once and then try to get a little bit of it down. So that for me, it was kind of like going back into that type of mode. And so, the next couple of days, it was, all right, this is great. Now I've learned it, but now I've got so much more. It's the tip of the iceberg stuff that, boy, I wish we could almost spend a full month in class being able to do this. So for me, it was just that excitement of after that first day of going, yeah, this is real, and I'm here, and let's do it.
And I particularly remember in class, for me, it's odd in front of a camera, and there's not a lot of interaction,
Yep.
physical interaction, which I like, looking people in the eye. But I got to tell you, you made the class. I remember back to that time, you were very interactive, which is good. I appreciate, from a presenting standpoint, I really appreciated that, because sometimes people are maybe shy to chat a question now. That's the environment we're in. But I remember you were very interactive. You asked questions, and every time I kind of polled the class, hey, what do you guys think about this? You always chatted an answer. So I appreciate that. It made it, I knew you were at least you weren't sleeping on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, we're here, if I want to learn, right? It's part of that interactive. And I can imagine, how was that transition? Because that was back in May. So there might have only been, 1 or 2 courses prior to mine that you had done that, right? Yeah. So it was pretty new on your end.
It was a big transition.
Yeah.
Huge transition, because there's a lot of things that I learned, but it all of a sudden we found ourselves, we were always you got to be here in person. This wasn't even an option. And I was a real big stickler about that, because people had asked in prior years, but we knew we had to adapt. And, like I say in life, sometimes you have to change whether you like it or not, and don't be a baby about it. Just suck it up.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, and make the best of it. So we had to make the best
That's
of it. For being a presenter, it was very unusual looking through a camera and just talking, but now we're used to it. Like anything, you get used to it. But it was for me, huge transition. Because I like walking around the room. I like,
exactly.
I love that energy. And the problem is, like, it's very hard to find the energy behind the camera. Because I don't know if you guys are sitting, I have no idea what the facial expressions are. I just have no idea.
Exactly. No, and that's it. And that to me is a perfect reason why I'm thinking, if I'm in your shoes, right, man, you've got to get some feedback somewhere. And that's what, again, being able to interact in the way that we were, I still thought was so excellent. And again, being in that position now when you were all online and most of everything now we have done, in a weird way, it's actually kind of helped moving forward with me, because I don't necessarily have anything to compare it to. I'm used to this now, and it's like, great. And then when we do start getting back to normalcy, or whatever that looks like, we have more face-to-face meetings, that will hopefully fall in place.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, you just adapt and kind of adjust. So
yeah, and I hear all these guys in other industries having to adapt, and they're crying about it. Yeah, like, listen, don't be a baby. Like, just no one has time for that. You know what I mean? We didn't have time for that. We didn't bitch and complain about it. We just did it. Everybody here, my wonderful staff, they realized we had to adapt, and we just rolled with it. That's it. You don't look
absolutely
back. So you went through the week of training. What did you think when it was all over? What did you think?
To me, it was, again, I kind of keep talking about maybe that excitement stuff. It was, oh my God, this is all done now. It's kind of a rush, right? When you're in it, it goes so quickly. You're trying to catch everything you can. After class, as a legacy, I was able to add the marketing side. So worked with Joe and his team, which was, it was absolutely outstanding. And that was, I think, one other person with me. So it was a little more interactive, just because when there's 2 of you, like you said here on the end, it's not like you can kind of hide in anonymity a bit.
When there's like a bunch of people on, but yeah. The marketing
Yeah.
enhancement class is, obviously smaller than the main class. Yeah.
Right, right. And so to be able to have that sort of training, really when it was all done, I took a moment to just try to digest some things and go, okay, I've heard, there's been a lot of stuff thrown around. We've got all of these resources. It was a lot like, I think the best analogy is you're sitting in front of a 500-piece puzzle and you're going, okay, I've got all the pieces here. Let's start putting things together. And so it was, what's the next first step? And as I'm going through this, it's all right, we get this logo finished up. Even at talked about that at the beginning, but I had the business form, but didn't have really anything else associated with it because I think the beginning of May, and I had about a week in between. And so then we're in class. And by the time that was done, it was getting all that stuff organized. So to me, it was just a level of excitement, getting going, this is something that I'm going to be able to, I think, be pretty successful at. And hopefully I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to work really hard. I'm so grateful I found you guys for this opportunity, because for the first time, as I was telling you before, I felt like I was really getting into a niche, and that sort of joy of like, man, I love what I'm doing. There were certain aspects. This was something, it felt like a wide open ball field. I'm able to do anything. I'm in control. I can focus on things I'm good at or not. I'm going to learn a lot. And I think, Kris, honestly, the most important aspect of all this was the support system that you offered, knowing that if I have any questions, if there's anything that I don't understand or I'm confused, there was never that sense of like, you can ask a stupid question here. It was like, no, you're starting out. You don't know. And you don't know what you don't know, kind of a thing too. Like you have to ask and figure things out. So to me, that was kind of how it felt getting off the ground right after class started.
And I realized that, your marketing, you really didn't launch until after class, maybe a month after class or 2 months after class, just because that's how it is. We have to give us time to get things going. And, and now that you've been out a couple of months, I mean, my team tells me you got some good stuff. You got stuff in the pipeline. You got stuff that should be closing, which is fun. I mean, so what do you only being, and that's the beautiful thing about what I want to highlight here from your perspective, because we have a lot of veterans on, but this podcast is supposed to highlight kind of like, okay, here's a guy, he bought Legacy. He's a couple months out. What is he doing? How is life? So I'll ask you, how's life?
Sure. It's great. And I'll be honest, if there weren't frustrating days when you're going through, and I think out of the gate, just like when you're starting anything, right? Every day you start to learn something new, and you find, oh my gosh, I've got a lead come in, and I start going through, I think, man, this is great. This guy he's $5 million. And then I'm thinking, wait, there's a 600, credit score. We're going to have to deal with, but at first you go, everything. It's like you're a puppy dog, right? You're looking at all this stuff. You're trying to get everything done.
Like
You'll
Christmas.
chase as much as that's
like
exactly
Christmas,
right.
right. Yeah.
That's right. All the shiny new toys.
You don't
what
know
are you
what
going to play with?
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Right.
I think that for me, and of course, being in the pandemic, which we were, the SBA was the kind of the first thing that really started to form a bit as far as some deals I've been involved with initially. I've gone through about 5 of them now. We've got 3 that are really close to closing actually at this point.
So you kind of felt like in more of a business loan SBA niche, at least right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. Right. Some of the early on wins that I had were the credit card processing side of things. You start thinking of like, oh my gosh, your network, who are the people that I know that this can help? And I think that 3 months in was one of the biggest advantages, because coming out, again, working in the law, and you go, okay, like we joke, hey, you're an attorney, right? So every time you're trying to do something, people, what exactly the legalese you're trying to talk. This to me, it's so much more just, how can I help your business? I want you to succeed. Exactly.
And so, because the fact that you're an attorney, do you think that gives you an edge or credibility when you're talking to people, or do you think it hurts you?
I think it gives an edge, and maybe I don't want to say unfairly, but there is a thought that, okay, you've gone through whatever, you have a JD, you're an attorney, you've passed the bar. That doesn't mean you're any smarter than anyone else. I mean, truly. I mean, it means, hey, that you've worked, you've gone through, and you can do this.
Well, you and I know that, but a general public doesn't think.
Sure. No, that's very true.
You got a law degree, man. You're right up there with Einstein. You know what I mean? I mean, people hold you in high regard. So
sure.
I'd imagine you played into that a little bit. I mean, you rolled
Yeah.
with it. Yeah.
And very true. I really, I wouldn't say I've a word on my sleeve. It's on my bio on the website, so obviously people know that about me.
Right.
But if there are certain things that come up where, let's say, hey, there is a legal aspect to what we're doing, I'd never advise anyone. Obviously, that's not my area now. I'm not
Sure.
advising a client, relationship, but
Yeah.
it gives me the chance to say, hey, listen, this is what at least I have seen in my experience, and as an attorney kind of going through this, maybe a pitfall to avoid or not. And interestingly, it's not so much on the legal end, because I think the furthest I get with that is someone that says, I want to sign this personally. I said, well, no, let's walk through what an LLC is or an S corp or how we'll form a company,
Right.
and go through it on that end. And then I always say, hey, look, if you're in Utah or Wyoming, wherever, seek an attorney there, but this is kind of what I would suggest you do. So it's that kind of a thing. And
Got it.
so it does add a little bit level of gravitas to it. But because we're on the finance end with so much, I find my greatest skill, Kris, with this is being able to take the complex and sort of make it easy to understand. So that's what the legal degree I think has helped the most in this, is to go, okay, I can see the jargon. I'll walk you through like what the SBA, all these government entities require. Let's just take this step by step by step. And I think that's what has helped me, having that legal background as much of anything.
Got
That
it.
makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that does make sense. And,
Mhm.
some of these transactions that you're working on and you're having a pipeline,
Mhm.
where have they come from? How did you obtain them?
Pretty much the majority, I would say 90% right now, have been through the lead generation, through
Through
the
our
training
program.
group,
Okay.
through your program. Absolutely. In fact, and I'd be remiss not to mention Rick. He's been unbelievable tailoring this. And for everybody watching, I have the option, even though I'm in Colorado, I'm not wedded to a specific area. So I'm able to do transactions across the country, which in comparison to the law, hey, I'm a Colorado attorney. So that's my area right here is Colorado. So you are pigeonholed a little bit there.
So you actually, yeah, you're not used to in the industry you're stepping out of. I mean, yeah, you're right. You only can practice law in the state that you're approved in, that you have a,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, state that you're licensed. So to be able to have, I had calls from, New York, where you're at, down through Florida, California now, Washington. So
Mhm.
just all over. In fact, I don't think I've had one conversation outside of a couple of companies through credit card processing that I know here, which speak to like that little 10% getting off the ground I've been able to do some business with that have been local. Everything has been pretty much all across the country. And a couple of weeks back, in fact, I was up in Washington State. I was able to just walk into a credit union and just introduce myself and say, listen, I'm kind of new to the area, not necessarily making something up, but just say I've got some clients that are here that are looking for ways to grow their business. I'd love to be able to meet you, learn about what you do, and see if I can't send, some folks your way. And it's that sort of relaxed, easygoing atmosphere of how can I help you versus, I'm an attorney. I'm going to show up. If you've been injured in an accident, let me talk to you. Right. So, it's just,
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
Or those commercials that you see on like, Fox News or
right.
like
Right.
methylsemiona or rather.
Exactly. You've got only a couple weeks left to submit your claim, or the strong arm, whatever the
Yeah.
the ads are. Hey, it works for those guys. I think it's great. They got the marketing down, but
Yeah.
you're right. It is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So no, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome to hear that's coming from our group. And, I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, like you said, you're a type of guy, you're all in, don't look back. You chose our legacy package.
Mhm.
And are you starting to realize the benefits of it? I mean, in that
Oh,
you're getting leads,
immediately.
opportunities, and things like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And really from out of the gate, kind of what we talked about, like the decision to do that, it as you look and research and go through it, it's a no-brainer.
Mm.
As much as you want to say, oh, I'll save a couple bucks here and there, if you're really committed to something and you know that this is what you would like to do, because obviously when you're spending any bit of money, you want to make sure. And I'm that way with $100. It's
Yeah.
I want to know what I'm getting and what I'm buying. That's very important to me and how I was raised. And it was kind of oddly enough, one of the easier decisions that I've made. Looking back, and as an attorney, when I saw the contract and what I was signing, honestly, I'm like, man, Kris is not getting the benefit of this. I'm like, this is all inuring to me. I have the loan processing. I've got all this marketing help, the lead generation for 3 years. I'm thinking, David, if you just put forth the effort I know that you are capable of, talking about myself in third person here, you're going to do great. But it
Yeah.
was, you were able to like set the table there for me. So
Well,
yeah.
and I appreciate you making. You brought up something. You brought up a very interesting point. Being that you're an attorney, and you're used to dealing with contracts, and that's what you're
Mhm.
that's what school for. That's what you're trained to do. So you read our contract, and what we tell people, they're like, well, it's a lot of pages, and it's like, but it's not because there's like we're trying to like get over on people. It's because we
Yeah,
spell out exactly what we're going to provide to you. It's for your benefit. I mean,
that's right.
it actually holds us accountable to you. Of okay, here's what we have to do for you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're absolutely correct. And that, again, as mentioning, when I went through that, I try not to look at stuff from an attorney, perspective, but you're kind of forced to. But I mean it. I was actually impressed with, not only, I know they say 8 pages, but as an attorney, I'm like, whoo, it's only 8 pages. I'm used to
I
like
know.
a
Yeah, yeah.
25 page. But you're right. It was so well spelled out. And it was exactly in my mind. And obviously I know you work with attorneys, but you could tell just by reading it that the focus on sort of the business side with you guys is like, look, we're up front. We understand what you are investing here with us. We're going to make this extremely clear and easy and concise.
We're gonna show
And
you exactly where. Yeah, yeah,
exactly, which I just appreciated. I mean, beyond words, coming from my prior environment.
yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and so you're in the business. Now you're starting to get the train moving a little bit, right?
Right.
And so let me ask you. I mean, what do you so far? And you're new in the game. What do you love
Mhm.
about the business?
I love the fact that every single day is different.
Mhm.
Number one, I think the excitement of I'm a passionate guy in general, helping people. I love that. I love being a resource for folks, and just to me, that's important. And so every day when I get up, we talk about the lead generation, right? If I see a new lead coming in, I get to learn about a company that I knew nothing about, obviously, the day before. But I look at it as this is generally a small business or a medium-sized one that needs financing, that is trying to grow their dreams. And I know that might sound kind of trite, but to me, being in that sort of saddle where I can call someone up and say, tell me about your business. What are you doing? What can I, and then therefore help you with, to get the dream that you have up and off the ground, to expand a location that you have, to help with payroll, families that need, obviously to put some food on the table for their children, keep a roof over their head. To me, that's what I love about this is I'm going to work every day and I'm helping people continue to live and pursue the dreams that they have. And that's that's unique. And I don't know very many other places you can really do that.
It's satisfying because I think you have
Great word.
an immediate ground level uh, benefit and interaction with what you're doing, right? So, like for
Right.
instance,
Right.
you may work in a job, or people that are looking at us coming from different backgrounds. You may work at a job where you're not immediately you're doing a part to do something, but you're not really seeing the effects of what you're doing. Where I think in this job, it's raw, meaning
Yeah.
it's up to you. And then when
Yep.
you complete that task or you fund that business, man, they're calling you up and they're saying thank you. And like you see that gratification of all the hard work.
Yes.
You can see the fruits of your
That's a
labor. I
great
don't
one.
mean the money aspect of it. I'm talking about the helping
Right.
people aspect of it.
That's it. And to your point, one of the actual first clients that I really started working with, who's now, we're still in this process with an SBA, I've gotten to talk to over the last 3 months, just about every week. And obviously, you start to build a relationship with these people as you do it. And I've learned about his family and what he's trying to do and what this will mean to his family, being able to get this loan and move forward with his business. And the folks he's going to help along the way in doing that. So you're right. You talk about seeing it at the ground level.
Mhm.
I'm with this guy, I've been on calls, and it's not like we're doing a lot of hand holding. It's just there's so many more opportunities to be able to help someone along to get through the whole process and see the granular side of things versus, like you said, working maybe on a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with it, but you're seeing one specific part in a different position. At least as an attorney, where I would come from, folks just want to talk to me about the legal end. Hey, tell me how I can protect myself in case something bad happens.
Right.
We'd work on some finances, but they had a CPA, they had their bank, their lender, whomever. And so this is really, it gives you that full picture, which I
Well,
just absolutely love.
yeah. And, as an attorney, if you're working, structuring a contract, I mean, you're really not, if you think about it, it's not like you're helping them, um, grow or hiring, like there's no, yes, there's a benefit of protecting them legally, the business, but
Right.
that doesn't really have a translation into growth or them providing jobs and hiring people where this does. I mean, look, you're going to
Exactly.
start a business, and that's one of the gratifying things for me in this business that I've
Mhm.
learned in 20 years. Man, you really start thinking about it and it'll blow your mind in that, like, wow, how many, through my efforts and what I've done, and I'm talking about this just in general, not me, but when you think, what have I done today? What have I done this month? What have I done this year? And you start to think, well, based on what I did, h- how many jobs did that create? Right?
Yeah,
How many people got
exactly.
hired? And would they have gotten hired if it weren't for me putting that financing together or the funding together? And that's a really warm, gratifying feeling. At least I get. I trust you
Absolutely.
probably feel the same way.
I completely do. And after, I mean, that was really within the first month as well. And now being just outside 3 months total,
Hmm.
that's something that I'm finding even more and more. We keep going back to the difference between being an attorney in this. Folks that come to your office as an attorney, they're generally not coming because they've got either some good news or, it's protect me. I've got a problem. There's someone I want to go after.
Yep.
And with the finance side, it's like people going, hey, I need some money. And to be able to help like that, I mean, you said it, and attorneys are so good. And I witnessed this firsthand clerking for some judges where it truly felt like, are you guys paid by the word? I mean, there's a way to say, if you can say it in 6 sentences, they'd say it in 10. And there was just always
Oh, well,
a way of doing that.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if I disclose this in class, but I have always said, and dealing with enough attorneys in my career, that when I get very old, decrepit, and I can't do what I love, which is what I'm doing now,
Yep.
I'm going to create a side business. I'm going to create another business, and the
Hmm.
business is going to be online. And what it is it's going to be a gift store that parents can buy their children when they graduate law school. And what it is, it's going
Oh,
to be this nice box. And when they open up the box, there's going to
yeah.
be a red pen and a stopwatch because that's how you guys make money, right?
That's
It's
exactly
called
right.
changing things on somebody else's agreement. It's called right? And billable hours. I mean,
That's a hundred
that's all you
percent
guys
correct.
do.
That's it. That's it. I mean, and you wonder why attorneys have the reputation they do, right? I
I know.
mean,
Don't steal that idea, by the way. Don't
no,
steal
I
that.
was going to say, you
Yeah,
heard it here. The copyright, the legal, it's on Kris. That's right.
it's not. Yeah, that's gonna be my when I'm 90, I'm gonna create that business
There you
model,
go.
sell
That's
to,
the best.
all the
I'll probably get my kids. I'll ask them to do the same thing. I'll have them buy that gift.
um, yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting to hear your perspective just being so new in the business. So, on the flip side of it, what do you hate about the business? And maybe hate's the wrong word, but what
Sure.
don't you like about the business? Let's be real,
I, yeah, I think the tough part, and this can be general life advice anyway. I mean, it happens in life, but you can do everything the correct way and go through and have all the forms, everything looks good, and all of a sudden at the very end, something falls through totally unrelated or out of your control. And like I said, that's life in general, right? But I think the one thing I wish I've looked back on a couple of these now, even early on, I've gone, man, I did everything right, and we were able to get this, got all the far, looked good, everything on paper. And then all of a sudden, the borrower couldn't come through on one thing or went a different direction, kind of take that hard left turn. And
Mhm.
I think for me, I mean, even, having to fill out the forms, the time some things take, you're dealing with some different people at times, there's some stresses there. But
Yeah.
that I think is the only other aspect where, I'll be honest, I like to have control. That's just my mentality. I like to be able to go, okay, I can do this and I can handle that. I can move things around the way I see. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's also been, as much as I don't like it, it's a good lesson too, to go, okay, you got to take a step back. Sometimes in life that things you can have everything planned to go the way that it should, but it doesn't work out. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Have a short memory. And that's something I think you mentioned in class, and if you want to even speak to, was that learning to take no pretty well and not get flustered and upset. And you look at it even as a blessing, because that frees you up. And maybe you can tell people what ROT stands for, because I remember that when we were in
Turn on
class,
time. Yeah.
of how important it is to get past something like that. So
It
yeah.
is. I mean, I think people are generally, they see no as a negative,
Mhm.
right? Maybe because it starts with an
Right.
N. Who knows, right? Negative, no, we'll start with an N. People tend to always think of no as a negative, but I'm a glass, overflowing guy. Let's put it that way. I'm not
Right.
a glass half full. I'm a glass overflowing guy.
Mhm.
And I tend to look at life that way. And so when you hear a no, you got to find the positive in that, right?
Absolutely.
And you got to embrace it, not sit there and, beat a dead horse or just cry about it. For instance, like a lot of our lenders are very candid. They will
Mhm.
say yes, but they'll also give you a quick no if it doesn't work.
Mhm.
Isn't that so? And people are like, well, gee, they were short. They said no. And it's like, well, take that as a blessing and move on.
Yes.
What did you want? Oh,
Right.
maybe in 4, weeks later, they say no. I mean, no. I mean, that's not going to do anybody good. So,
Right. And that's
yeah, you just have to look at no with a different mindset. I mean, just I think
mhm.
automatically, just when people say no, it's like the negative thing. I don't think so. You got to
Yeah.
look at the positive in it.
That's right. No,
You
and
know?
I'm with you. And that has been, especially early on, and having been able to talk to other graduates as well and go through. We just finished the NACLB earlier this week, a couple of days ago, which was excellent. And to have that experience working with, again, people that are also in the same boat, you're not alone, right? I mean,
Yeah,
to
we're all
to
on this
have the
boat together.
that's it, right? And it's a pretty fun cruise where we're headed, So to be able to work with folks that, I mean, you're not going through this by yourself. You've got a team behind you, and it might feel like you're distant because we're obviously now having to go remotely with things and getting an email versus, hey, just hollering at someone across the desk to say, what
Sure.
should we do here? Certainly, it's a bit of an adjustment, but I think kind of getting out of the gate, number one, learning how quickly a no can be a good thing. And like you said, I'd rather have that than a long drawn out maybe every day of the week. And
Mhm.
you can't take it personally. And kind of like we started this whole conversation off with, hey, things have changed in 2020. So you can either complain about it and say, man, I like, boy, this sucks, and I'm going to complain, or take your glass, it's always overflowing, and go, we're going to make the best of this. So we're going to do
Like,
this online. I got to know, which means I've got time to focus on someone that's going to give me a yes, and we're going to be able to go through, build relationships there. So
yeah,
that's really the attitude I found the first 3 months that has helped me a lot,
that's a
is
great
being able
point.
to
It's a
do
great
that.
point. So much of this is attitude. So
Yeah,
much of this is attitude. I mean, you have to have that attitude. We can give you the best tools. We can give you the best training. We can give you the best relationships. But if you have a shitty attitude, you're not going to
that's
make
right.
it in this business, and you're not going to make it in probably life in general, as I say. I mean,
Yeah,
just going into life with a shitty attitude, it just, it doesn't work. Doesn't work.
right, right. And obviously it's the benefit of people that you got to enjoy a little bit of what you do too, and that's something that I think I've got the best of both worlds going into something I love and can see. And hey, it's not always roses. I'm sure you can speak to that too. You've got days that you think, oh my goodness, like there are tough aspects to it, but
Oh, yeah,
being
yeah, yeah. I'm
able,
not saying it's
right?
all rosy. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So
I
that
mean,
that attitude is everything.
and you know what's interesting is the same frustrations you're going through are the same things that veterans go through. Same thing that I go through. I mean, there's days
Sure.
where, we have a client and they beat us up on our contracts. And I'm not talking about a CCTG. I just mean my
Mhm.
financing company. They beat us up. We change terms. We do this, we do that. And they still don't take it. And
Right.
it is what it is. I mean,
That's it. That's it.
there's always another client,
And
and
that's
don't
exactly right.
fret about that.
And if you're doing your work as well in this end, where you're networking with people, you're going out and being able to meet folks in your own area too. I mean, that's a great place to start. I mentioned being up in Washington, just walking in. The girlfriend she's wanted to go do some shopping. I said, you know what? Down the street, I saw this. There's a credit union. I got a couple cards. Let me just walk in there. Go ahead, do what you want to. I'll meet you in 30 minutes.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
stuff
It
like that.
totally beats. It totally beats going with her shopping. I mean, let's be honest.
Exactly.
Good old
Exactly.
business
Better than
development at
finding,
a bank.
yeah, exactly. Right. Gonna just sit and be like, all right, yes, ma'am. Okay, another 15 minutes. Yep. No, you look great in those pants. Absolutely.
Send me a text. Just send me a picture of it.
That's right.
I'll give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Right.
For sure.
So is she like annoyed with you now? You know, like when you guys go out and you see a bank and you're like, ooh, maybe let me go in and talk to somebody. And she's like, Jesus Christ, come on. I mean,
There are there are times I think, I mean, she's been very supportive with it, which is great. But
right.
no, it's definitely like you start thinking about this right more often than you would, and you go, oh my gosh. The perfect example of this, we're out at dinner the other night, and because of it being Colorado, there's a potential for another shutdown. I
Mhm.
start talking to one of the waiters, and it's, oh, how are you guys doing? Do you have a plan as far as if something goes one way or the other? I mean, do you have financing, or thinking PPP or some of the SBA type stuff? And it's interesting how, I wouldn't say there's like, oh God, you're bringing it up again, but it's more like you have a skill set now, and you have, let's say, I'm going to say a skill set, more of like a product, a way to help these people. And you're just through conversation able to talk to them and bring that up. And she works, she's so much smarter than I am, which isn't saying much, but she's absolutely brilliant. She works in neurotherapy. And so she understands, again, like, ask about the intricacies of the brain and how pathways are formed. I mean, that's her role. And so a lot of the stuff that she does as well is talking with people, so she can kind of see how that goes. But you're right, there are times where it's like, okay, you want to talk to that bank? I'm going to go in and I'll meet you at Nordstrom in an hour, you do your thing.
Right. And yeah, it gives you an excuse. But
Right.
but a good excuse. But you bring up a great point. I mean, your partner, your girlfriend is, girlfriend, I assume, right?
Yeah, girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah. So, she's in what is it again? Neuro
Neurotherapy, right.
neurotherapy.
So it's,
Eh,
yeah,
eh,
brain training stuff,
but my
right.
point is when you guys go out and meet people, let's say you guys go to like a party, right? And I
Mhm.
mean, a part network, there's some people sitting around. There's only so much she can segue into neurotherapy, where you, on the other
Yes,
hand,
that's for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, you can pretty much relate to everybody in that room and what you
Yeah.
do, which is a great thing about this business. And has
Mhm.
she gotten used to that
For
yet? I mean,
sure.
she probably notices that, like, now
Oh, for
you
sure. Yeah. And I've always been very gregarious, right? I mean, you can obviously tell in this call, I'm no shortage for being able to speak.
right,
And so, yeah, she definitely is. As far as being able to kind of tailor that conversation and introduce to talk about background, what they do. And you said it's a fun job for that reason, right? I mean, when you're at a party and, like you said, even a networking event, and people also want to ask, hey, I hear you're in finance. You do some bank, you help with money. Like, tell me about that. So I've found myself really not even having to say this is what I do, but people
mm,
coming up approaching me,
that's
which is
awesome.
it's just a fun fit, and it works really well. So
That's
very,
awesome.
very grateful. Yeah,
Well, are you ready for some questions? Not that
sure,
I
let's
didn't
do
ask
it.
you ready for some,
No,
rapid
no,
fire
all
questions
works.
here? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, David, if you were not doing what you're doing now, you being a, professional finance individual and owning a finance company, helping people, and you weren't an attorney, right? You didn't go to law school. What would be, if you could sit back and say, I want a dream job. I say not even a dream job, but if you could do something else, what would it be? And you could be like automatically placed there immediately. You didn't have to go through training school or nothing. What would it be?
Interestingly, if I wasn't, because I had at least looked at the Air Force JAG as kind of being the thought, so service of country, I still think I would be doing something in the military. After kind of pursuing that with the law, if I wasn't in JAG, I thought, well, hell, I'll just still go in as an officer myself and work my way up. Either being full time, kind of depending on how much I wanted to pursue with family, be a full,
Right.
I don't want to say full time, soldier, but that's obviously what you are. I guess
Sure.
spending 20 years, what I'm trying to say, or going
Right.
in, depending on how long the
Mhm.
commitment would be. But to me, as mentioned, helping people has always been something that's so important to me. And really, there's no place, in my opinion, that you can do more helping and serving others than in our military. So
Yeah,
that would
absolutely.
definitely be something. I think having, as I mentioned before, we both share Korean War veteran fathers. And
Mhm.
so from a very early age, I always joke, my dad, and God love him, he's 92 now, but he said, there's four sentences in our family that you're going to say. It's yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. And I'm like, I got it, Dad. And I mean, a very loving, kind father, but that was very much the structure and how things were growing up. And so for me, a lot of what that he learned and then being able to apply in business later in his life came from his time in service. And so that would be something that I would really consider. And obviously I mentioned the JAG just because being an attorney, but not having that, I still think I would want to be able to serve the country in some manner,
Totally.
shape, and form. So,
Totally
again, I look at that as an honor. So,
yeah, I could totally see you doing
yeah.
that. So if you could sit down and spend 3-4 hours with somebody, dead or alive,
Mhm.
anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
I think, and this is, it's not to be political or coming from the recent show out of New York, but Alexander Hamilton. It kind of thinking about, I was a total nerd, and part of my background, I actually spent a little over a year in New York, working for kind of a random part. I always say a different time in my life, but as a production company down Midtown, basically, that
Okay.
did film and whatnot too. And I can explain that, but to answer your question more specifically, really because I was in New York, and obviously that's Hamilton's backyard. I learned a lot about him, and growing up, going to college, I was a political science undergrad. I did a couple other things in my college career where I got to really read a lot about him just personally, the struggles that he went through growing up, and then really the impact that he had on the formation of the country, and serving with Washington and everyone associated to the U.S. at that time, the Federalist Papers, his writings. And I think maybe as an attorney, the aspect I always liked about him was he was like a death by a thousand cuts guy. Every sentence he would write in a manner that I was just amazed with.
Meaning.
And so, yeah, and a brilliant person. I mean, absolutely brilliant. When you think of setting up the financials, and the finance secretary of the Treasury under Washington, he really was able to put the U.S. on a footing to slowly get away from Europe and be stable with our own currency and economy. So that's something that, to be able to just sit and listen to what he was able to do and how, and all of the energy and effort, talent that he had, just his thoughts on politics up to that point in time, what he thought of certain things. I would love to just pick his brain and just kind of sit and listen.
Yeah, that's an excellent choice. I would. That's an excellent choice. No one has brought up that individual to date with the podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what's cool too is I always think like a guy like that, or anybody that was influential, like in the 1700s, 1800s, to take them, and if you could resurrect them and put them where we are now,
right,
and put them in a position and say, okay, let me catch up to speed the last 100 years or a couple of years.
Yeah.
What would you do? What here's where we're at today. What and it'd be interesting to see,
totally
what would become out of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be just to, and like you said, to bring them up technologically, number one, and go, okay, here's what we're doing. I'm in Colorado. You're in New York. We're already having, I mean, he would lose his mind. I mean, immediately, but you're right, to be able to comment on culture too. Any of those guys, it'd be crazy. So, yeah.
What's one thing we normally don't know about David Roth?
I think I maybe touched a bit on it early on. So I went to set the stage a little bit. And I'm sure as we talk about this, coming from a more conservative background, I went to an all boys Jesuit high school, right? Like very straight laced athlete, played baseball. That was my focus. Didn't really date girls at all. Got into college and still focused on, a lot of stuff academically, it was pretty straight laced with stuff, but I fell into some acting classes and got really involved, almost minored in it. I mean, took like 5 or 6, but sort of top level, like Shakespeare, all kinds of different monologue type stuff, learning methods of acting. Yeah. And totally right. Like you would never think someone like me, at least on paper, would go, you'd star in a Tennessee Williams play, or we'd go through and do some acting. And I was lucky because I had one of the best professors just ever from my undergrad and grad experience. And she's ever watching, it's Stacy Connolly. And she is at Trinity University where I did my undergrad. And I had a couple classes with her, and she really kind of inspired me. She's like, hey, you might be able to do this. You could enjoy
your comfort zone.
Exactly. And it was something that because of that, it was also, people think, oh, the acting or theater, there's a type with that, but there was so much as far as the background study, and not only the character study, but when you're also on stage, you have to read another person. You have to not only read what the lines are, but the facial expression, and even to an extent, if it's an improv setting, what the audience is doing. And I found what's fascinating is you talk about being a good attorney, or especially if you're in a courtroom on a business setting, being able to not only one, think on your feet, and a lot of that we were training in sort of our improv classes, but being comfortable, being uncomfortable, having to stand up in front of a group and speak. I mean, what is it? The greatest fear that people have, right, is public speaking, the number one fear, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
So being able to address that, those courses really offered that. So when I graduated, again, I mentioned I have a poli-sci degree. And you can imagine, right? We talked about our fathers. I said, Dad, hey, I think I'd like to go to New York and maybe try some of this acting stuff, right?
And your dad's a Marine too. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
do you have the scar? Do you have the scar
He was
after
in the Army.
Conversation?
That's right. Yeah. He's like, you just spent 4 years and how much money, and you want to do this? Like, oh my God, what have I done?
Right.
But no, he's very supportive. And so I think from that, and so I actually, kind of the uniqueness to that was when I was in New York, I worked for a tabletop production company. And I always tell this story because it's one of the more enjoyable aspects of a job that I never thought in my life I'd do. And I look back and I think, God, what a great opportunity I had. But it was downtown, Midtown, as I mentioned. But this company was the number one filmmaker for tabletop production. So that basically was when you saw a commercial and food was being delivered on a plate, let's say, or there's people sitting down at Olive Garden, right? They're smiling and the steam is rising from the food, and maybe there's a slow pour of wine. This company, that's all they did. And they were excellent with it. And so I was a production assistant and I ran all over the area, getting whatever was needed from dusk till dawn to get a film together. And I'll never forget, I had a list that the director had. We're going through everything. He said, okay, we got this new scene's gonna have a bunch of strawberries on it. I need you to go to Macy's and you need to get this specific shade of lipstick. And we're gonna color in and around all the little aspects of these strawberries that are gonna be shown that might not look perfect. Because obviously they're getting them from the best that they can.
Oh yeah.
But all of that food that you see, I mean, you wouldn't just imagine how many things that you see are inedible, but they look just delicious when they're being presented, right? So
yeah. And I somebody, I think I read this. I came across like a quirky article that talked about this, of what you see on TV. Like a lot of the cereal commercials, it's actually like glue, right?
Yeah,
it's like white glue.
Completely.
It's not milk. It's actually like a glue concoction,
That's it. No, you'd be in big trouble if you ever sat down at a table and wanted to have breakfast on a production of that stuff. But no, walking up to the counter as 22-year-old kid going, okay, I need your finest magenta colored lipstick. They're looking at this kid going, what on earth? Oh, sure, it's for your film. Yeah, right. So
yeah.
So so that's probably the more unique aspect, was that time in New York. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And now comes the juncture in the podcast where you could ask me anything. Anything, personal, business.
Sure.
Nothing's off the table. I will promise I will answer to the best of my ability.
Well, no, perfect. Well, I think maybe coming also from my aspect of being 3 months in. So what I'd love to learn, we kind of talked a little bit about this, you might have an innate ability to handle the word no. But is there a way in which maybe you have really honed that? Was that a natural skill to you? Is that something that you think maybe in your past you kind of experienced some things that were able to help someone that's new to this, that might not be as comfortable in that setting? How did you maybe overcome this early on? Like when you're getting out and someone hangs up the phone, I've had some clients where I go, oh, they didn't realize I was supposed to call. It's really like, okay, hey, I'm sorry I interrupted. Wow, try to kind of move on. But tell me, how did you do that as someone that's been a total expert, now 20 years looking back? Because that'd be really good advice.
I think it's a mindset. It's a mindset. And if I look back at myself, I have thick skin. You develop thick skin in this business, but I wouldn't give you an accurate answer if I told you now, because it's your question is more, how did that develop? And if I look back, how did that develop? I think early on, my story, I didn't come from privileged beginnings. And there was a lot of experiences when I was younger that I kind of went through that weren't pleasurable, if you will. And so, when I had a chance to kind of do something with myself, and it was really on me, and I took the initiative to do it. I always think about, well, gee, if someone says, "What the hell are you calling me for, you asshole?" and they hang up the phone,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm fine. I could still, I'm fine. I can still breathe. I could still sit in my
Right.
chair. I can get up and get something to eat. Like, it's not that big of a deal, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's not. And people, again, people just in the grand. I tend to look at it in the grand scheme of things, right? And compared to what? Okay, they called you an asshole and they hung up the phone. Or you're gonna walk into a bank and you're gonna ask to meet with a business loan officer or the business development officer, and the business banker, which they don't typically have this response, but if you were to come across one and they said,
Sure.
"Get the hell out of here," get the hell out of
Right.
here. Who cares? I mean, the grand scheme of thing is you're breathing, you're living. Like, that's almost, you got to get in a primitive mindset and say, like, everything that we're doing here in the grand scheme of things is like minuscule. Meaning, so if someone tells you,
Yeah.
who
That's a
cares?
great point.
There's always another person. So again, I don't know if that helps you, but I know it helped me when I look back at things and I'm like, yeah, at least I'm not living in a shelter. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I mean,
Right.
and that's a truthful
Yeah.
statement from my background. And it's like, who cares?
Mhm.
Right? Like, if they say no, they say
Right.
no. And I
Yeah.
think over time that develops a tenacious appetite to just keep going. I've been in scenarios when I was a loan broker for the first 3 or 4 years of my career where, I would go to vendors who sold
Mhm.
equipment to get their equipment finance deals. And I remember there were times where I was kicked out of 20 vendors in a week. Kicked out.
Wow. Yeah.
Get the hell out of
Yeah.
here, right? But
Yeah.
then a week later, I land one, and that one produced me $150,000 a year, consistently year after year, right? And so I think
Right. Right.
what develops sea legs as an entrepreneur are the ones that keep going and just have that mindset. The guys that fail, there's a lot of reasons why you could fail, but the guys that fail, they give up on that 1 or 2 tries. 3 people tell them no, and they're like, "Oh, man," just keep going. Just keep going. So I think it's
So
to try to get your
yeah.
mindset in that primitive, just that primitive high level attitude,
Sure.
It's
And
okay.
to your later
I didn't get beat up. I have no bruises. I'm on to the next one. I'm gonna have lunch. Like, who
That's
cares?
right. That's it. And I mean, to your latter point, that was another one of the questions I had was looking at that aspect of failure. I mean, obviously, I always compare it to play baseball, right? You can
Mm.
fail 7 out of 10 times, and you're batting 300, you're going to get into the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
So I kind of look at that. What in your life was a failure that you had, or maybe at the time you went, oh my God, like this was a big one. And looking now forward, however many years, you can say, wow, what ended up not working out here actually was one of the better things that could have happened to me. And maybe I don't want to say dodged a bullet with this, maybe a business that turned you down or then opened up a door to something else. I mean, when you talk about that failure you just left off on, is there something that you can look back and go, wow, that was a failure that now that I see this, it was actually one of the best things that happened to me? If that makes sense.
When I was let go from a bank. If you remember that
Okay.
story, when I was
I
fired
yeah.
because they got rid of a division, and, I was only a banker for maybe,
Mhm.
3 years of my career.
Sure.
And
Okay.
so here I was, right? No college degree.
Mhm.
And, I was fortunate enough to give an opportunity, at a bank, and I excelled for 3 years. I was, selling I was doing equipment financing, and they decided to get rid of their whole division of equipment financing, and I was left without a job.
Yeah.
That was a negative thing because here I was young, cocky, thinking I was climbing the, so-called corporate, banking ladder,
Right. Right.
and here I was, I got let go and didn't have a college degree. And, you know, it was rough, but that event really propelled me to start my own business. You know, that's what I did. I
Yeah,
started my business. So, you know, I viewed it as
sure.
a failure at the time, but now I say it's
Yeah.
the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I haven't looked back since.
And I'm sitting here as proof of that, I guess, I'm just listening to you, right? I mean, had that never happened, who knows what through this training and had the exposure that you obviously have had and
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
learned.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Right.
it's you could it's mind-boggling when you start thinking, well, what if, what if, what if, what if, and, you know, pulling
Right.
trigger. But I believe in life, things happen for a reason. I do believe that.
Mm,
They just
I agree.
it's something we
Right.
don't that's and I'm not even talking about religion. It's just something that's greater than all our understanding at this level, and I
Mhm.
just think that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
They
No, I'm totally with you. And I well, maybe the last question that I've got is some things that I like to think of with myself, where I look back and we talk about the law. So if people are interested in going to law school, they're like, David, tell me what was it like, or what would you do, or how would you do things differently? I want to pose you the same question. If you could maybe talk to yourself coming out of that bank, or maybe the first couple of years as you're working as a broker yourself,
Mhm.
what advice do you think you'd give yourself looking back in that position that you know now and that you were able to kind of accumulate? I know what I'd tell myself as a 1 year law student or first year, coming out. But what would you say to yourself in that
Wow.
position?
These are great questions, Joe. Great questions. Wow, that's a good one. What would I tell a younger version of me coming out? I know. Okay, it just hit me. I know and we kind of touched on this. I know exactly what I would say. I would say that you two things. Number one, and I say I know it's going to sound repetitive because I state this in class, but there's a reason I state it in class because I mean it. Don't chase these huge mega transactions and let the numbers kind of get you all sexy and and you start counting your eggs before they count your chickens before they hatch.
Right.
um that's a big thing because when I first got my own, you come across these huge mega deals, 50 $100 million, and you just kind of go down that path, and it kind of leads to nowhere most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And um, number two, I would say to myself to really, um, you can't help everybody. To come to that instance where you cannot help everybody, you just cannot. And going into it,
Mm,
you want to help everybody, and you want to maximize every deal. You want to get a commission on every deal and monetize it,
right.
but you cannot help anybody. And I think all that is in relation to one another, right? It all comes into play. Those are just various pieces, but you can't help everybody. You have to practice that ROT, return on time, and focus your time on things that are going to give you the best ROI or greatest success plan or greatest chance of an ROI. Because I
Sure. Yeah.
remember in my first couple of years, I wanted to help everybody. I remember I had a board in my apartment, and it was like a whiteboard. And I'd look at it every morning and I'd say, wow, I got 200 deals, but really I had like
Yeah.
15.
Sure.
Looking back, I
Yeah.
had like 15, because all the rest of them were just
Exactly.
junk and,
Yep.
to nowhere. So that's what I would
Sure.
tell myself. And, it's funny because I tell it to you guys. I mean, I really do.
Mhm.
Those are all experiences that I tell in class because they're real experiences. And that's what you guys are going to face. And I'm sure you're learning. You just said it too. You're learning it. You're
Yeah.
coming across stuff that may look good on the outside, but the more you dig in, it's this path to nowhere.
That's right. No, that's great advice. That's great advice, Chris. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, David, you said it all. We covered a lot.
We did. We
uh,
did
we,
a lot of ground. I
no, we covered a lot of ground. We danced in a lot of different types of dances, which I love. It makes things interesting. And particularly I love about this because I get a chance to meet you. We really didn't have face to face
absolutely.
time, as I would say. I do. I want to thank you for donating your time to come on this, and I think people that are going to watch this will get some valuable lessons, particularly just coming right out, right out of the
Yeah.
gate. And,
That's
and,
it.
and the number one lesson is there's just way too many attorneys in this world.
That's right. And they all, like me, maybe find a way to say a lot more than they need to. Just shorten it up. Shorten it up.
No, I appreciate it.
No,
I do appreciate it.
it was great.
Yeah,
No, thank you. My pleasure, Kris. Really. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And hopefully we can meet in person someday.
I look forward to that.
Conference.
That's right. Next one of these conferences, we'll get out and get a chance to actually shake hands and have that conversation in person. I look forward to it.
And share a drink. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's right.
All right. Well,
Great, sir.
everybody, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Commercial Capital Training Group, Entrepreneurs in Finance on YouTube, and we will catch you all on the next one. Thank you. There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. You know, people always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's two words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.